certain temperature, a warming device becomes a critical device for the survival of baby. And this is the kind of a device in many places we have today. And what it means and what it leads to is the situation where we have a pretty high infant mortality rate. Even today, even there are some countries which are pretty smaller than us, but our infant mortality rate is much higher than them. So 0.8 million newborn babies die within 28 days. So this was the context, this was the need which at GE Healthcare we wanted to address. So on one hand, we know that this is the kind of a current state, this is how people are trying to solve this problem. And being a sort of a responsible healthcare company, we thought GE could play an important role in that. So that is one part of the story. And if you look at within GE, which is a technologically advanced company known for developing cutting edge product, and the traditional approach is to build something which is really state of art, technically advanced, and have almost everything which is needed to solve the problem. So if you see, this is the kind of a product which we had for infant warmer segment. So we had a product called OmniBad. With just one touch, you can convert incubator into warmer. Then there is another product, again very sophisticated warmer, and then we created one more warmer. So the whole approach of creating this portfolio was to sort of reduce price and some reduce feature and get a different cost point and different offering at different price point. So now this is a sort of internal view and where we were in terms of developing warmer and to address this problem. So now with this kind of a background, if you try to address the problem like you have a light bulb or people who are not able to afford warmers, what would be the approach? So the natural response would be, okay, reduce the price further, maybe cut down some more feature and have something which will solve the problem. And this is where the research becomes very important in this region or in this emerging economies, because the notion that, okay, if you reduce the price, reduce the feature, it is going to work, may not be true. The research revealed that, in many places, actually they had warmers which were pretty expensive. Developed countries had donated those warmers, but those were not in use. So even if the price becomes zero, you cannot solve the problem, because definitely it is not the price alone game. So what it means is you need to really figure out who my consumers are, what kind of environment, and what is the context of use in which we are trying to solve the problem. So we definitely went for a pretty elaborate research, and we came up with certain attributes, parameters and dimensions which were needed to solve that problem. So it was not only the price alone, but there were things like it has to be rugged and reliable, it has to be serviceable, user-friendly. So you have warmers which were donated by the developed countries but not in use, because if something goes wrong, there is nobody to repair. If something goes wrong, there is nobody to service. It were complex, people could not use it. If there are some consumables needed, those consumables are not available. There were power fluctuations like Mr. Kashyap talked about. So you need to create something which is really suitable for that environment. And in order to do that, you may create something which has maybe some of the feature better than what you have in your high-end product, because you are trying to cater something which are trying to address the need, and which, unless you do that, you cannot solve the problem by just changing one or two variables. So that was the learning which came from the research, and which this got actually translated into the product which we created finally. So the process from purely from a price and feature driven approach, it became a totally human centric approach, where the focus on first understand the environment, first understand the user, context of use, figure out what really is needed there, and then come up with the idea of how the product should be. So it starts with people, not with technology, price and feature. So we had a pretty a comprehensive research framework where the research was done at all three levels. So, and by all three levels I mean, typically if you have product and then you engage research, what you do is, okay, you figure out a way of how I can make the experience better, or how I can make it more usable, safe and ergonomic. But so that only solves the problem of the experience. So you have something which kind of solves, it may be usable by people. So that is one part of the research. The other thing is explorative, where you know that, okay, maybe the solution of this problem is to figure out a low-cost warmer. But what is that low-cost warmer? What is the definition of a low-cost warmer? What is the configuration? What exactly we mean by that? What all things should go in that? So that is where you explore, you go beyond just thinking about creating the right sort of experience, but you really figure out what is the right definition of a low-cost warmer. And the first phase where it starts, the actually generative phase, where you don't even think about a warmer. What you think is, okay, I'm focusing on reducing infant mortality rate. Now what it means, what are the different variables and parameters which are affecting infant mortality rate? You really plot the whole system and then you figure out how I can go about it. So actually research goes from maybe generative to explorative to experiential. So generative, in that phase, you are looking at a very big picture, trying to analyze all the various elements and parameters which have influence. You are trying to understand the whole system, and that can lead to something totally different solution, or it may lead to a situation where you understand that only one product or offering may not be able to solve the problem.
It's only in the last 10 years that the center of gravity of innovation has shifted to the east, and more particularly to China and India, because these are the two fastest growing economies. And we know that the Indian consumer, especially the rural consumer, is very heterogeneous and not homogeneous, and therefore understanding the rural consumer is becoming a challenge. And the challenge really is in terms of innovation, right? Recently we are working with a global multinational companies in the lighting area, and we took their whole team into rural India for 3 days from their CEO down, and they wanted to innovate some products for rural India. And what they learned was amazing. I wanted to bring a few products, but I could only lay my hand on one. Now this is an LED gadget which every rural home has today, and they take this gadget from room to room. So when the lady is cooking in the house, she takes it to the kitchen. When the children want to study, they take it to their room, right? And we asked this company, how much would it cost you to make this product, because there's a big market for it. And they said, perhaps 200 rupees if we can really cut down costs. And this thing sells for 25 rupees, which is less than $0.50. And how do they manage to sell this? There are 3 LEDs which cost maybe about 5 rupees, and there is this outer body which costs another 5 rupees. Inside is a discarded mobile phone battery. All of us change our mobile phones every year, every 2 years, and the battery hasn't run its life. It's still got some life left. So there is a whole industry which collects or recycles these old batteries, and there is already a charging circuit in the battery. So they pick out the charging circuit and the battery and put it in this, and you already have your charger at home, which are by and large, sort of common chargers, and that's how they're able to market this at 25 rupees. Similarly, you have CFL lamps, and this company said, we sell our lamps for 150 rupees, and we bought reconditioned lamps in the market for 15 rupees. So a new lamp for 150 rupees, a reconditioned lamp for 15 rupees. I didn't know that a CFL lamp could be reconditioned. Did any of you? At least this multinational company had never heard that a CFL lamp can be recycled. So what they do is, you have the metal body, you have the glass shell. These local people very carefully remove the glass shell, okay, disconnect it, take out the damaged circuit, and refit a new circuit. That circuit costs just 10 rupees. Okay, and they sell it for 15 rupees. So there are hundreds of such innovations that are happening out there in rural India. And the only way to understand how to innovate products for the rural consumer is to go out there. You cannot do it in the labs of the US or Europe, because the Indian rural consumer is very different. 10 years back, when private insurance companies came into India, they issued paper policies in rural India, and within weeks, rats had chewed into them. So the policy has to last a lifetime. So there are many such issues, and therefore, the only way to learn is go out there, go through a process of community co-creation, a bottom-up approach, where you will find real gold mine of opportunities of the kind of products that you will be making. And when you engage in this dialogue with the rural consumer, you will be able to develop products which are appropriate for the Indian market. And if you can make products which are relevant for the Indian rural market, the affordability is so powerful that you can sell it anywhere in the rest of the world. Right? So, I mean, I'm not supposed to be a speaker here, I'm only a chairperson, so I'll restrict my comments to just a few, broad approaches to really set the context. The other thing we have to recognize is that the rural environment is very different. Okay? In the US and Europe, you take for granted that there is no voltage fluctuation. Right? Voltages are stable at 100% plus minus 0.1%. That's where they would maintain their voltages. In India, the voltage varies from 220 to 330 to 110. And if you ever visit a village, you'll find these bulbs, electric bulbs, going past. They don't last more than 2 days because the voltage keeps fluctuating. So for the CFL also, what these people have done is they have put up a external fuse in the circuit. Okay, that's a local solution that these people have found. Now, even if the voltage goes up to 330, it's only the external fuse which blows, right? And you can just replace that fuse and cost maybe a rupee or two because it's just a wire, nothing more than that. So, there are a lot of these kinds of solutions, right? So what I'll request now is the two panelists who are here to start with making their presentations, and each of them would take between 10 to 15 minutes, yeah? And by which time, if our third panelist also joins us, it will be wonderful. Otherwise, we will then open the session for